zoom in to about here. Okay, to define this part, I'm going to use some existing geometry to get me close, and I'll use Project a Sketch, and these are just plain solid edge and synchronous tools. So I want to project this edge, and I neglected to activate the components, so let's do that very quickly. I will activate here, and while I'm at it, let's make sure that this sheet metal component is also active. I'm going to return into my part, go back into my Project a Sketch, and I want to be on this face, and I want this edge, and this edge. I've created a shortcut to hide previous levels, so therefore I can see just the geometry that I'm working with. And let's do trim corner from here to here and here back to here, and display the rest of my components. And I'm going to change to, say, a view angle here. This will be a contour flange. Grab my profile, extrude it. Let's make that 3 millimeter, and it's going to be about that tall. And since I created this in the middle of the part, I would like this to extend down some, and my synchronous editing tools allow me to just quickly and easily grab faces and go ahead and make these edits. Next, I'm going to Project a Sketch again and work this time on this face, and let's go to a top view. Whoops, before I do that, let's project in my geometry, and I'm looking for this edge and this edge. Go to a plan view on this, zoom in a little closer, and I'm going to trim this edge back to, say, maybe about there, and something along there. And this region and this region is going to simply cut all the way through the part. And let's zoom out some, and we're pan over. I'm going to close and return, which brings me back to the top level. So for this moment, I've completed that portion of the task, but I happened to notice that when we were creating the structure and when we were navigating through the Pathfinder, that some of these components were checked out to Mr. Sainbrook. So let's jump over to another session of Solid Edge that I have running. And in this session, I've already emulated the work that Mr. Sainbrook was currently doing. Now, he had opened up this assembly 037, and this is checked out to him as I'm logged in as that user, and he edited in place to this, and this also checked out, and this is our implied checkout. As I go to work on something, if it's available for checkout, then it will automatically be checked out to that user and stay so until they either close the file to check it back in or manually check it back in. And what Mr. Steinbrook was working on doing is he was going to come into this part and make some modifications. And once he goes to in-place activate to this, you'll notice that an icon appears on the screen, which is telling me that this file is read-only. And if I click on it, I'll get a dialog box, and it tells me why it's read-only. It has a Team Center status of 60. I can also see this inside of my my formula, inside the Pathfinder. So to work around this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the top level where this component resides. I cannot edit the component because it's been released, but I can do a revision on the component. And I'm currently in revision A. I'm going to define a new revision, and I'm going to auto-assign to pick up the next revision value, which in this case is a B. I will say OK, and you notice in the Pathfinder I was at revision A. OK to upload, and this will create a revision B for me, and it'll automatically bring the revision B in. Revision B is created with the same geometry that the revision A was. So let's go ahead and do the work. If I double click in here to in place activate, I no longer get a read-only message. And this is a ordered part. I'm going to select all of the features and I'm going to move them to synchronous. Once this is in synchronous, let's come into here and let's recognize, we'll grab all of those faces, get rid of that feature, and let's pan back just a little. And I'm going to do a synchronous edit, so I want to be on face priority, and I'm going to grab all of these faces and just do something that's noticeable, so maybe stretch that out about an inch. Okay, now that I've modified this component, I want to update my draft. And I know that there's a draft associated with this, so I'm going to go to the Manage menu and run a Where Used. The Where Used shows me all of the components that this is used, both in assemblies and in sub-assemblies. And here's the draft file that I'm looking for, so I will tell this to open and say OK. My draft file opens, and this is telling me that there are some changes. So let's do a zoom fit first, and I'm going to update my views. My dimension tracker comes up and it tells me that I have a dimension that's now orphaned. It went to geometry that no longer exists, so we can simply get rid of it. It's no longer necessary. I'm not going to bother to clean up the geometry. I'm going to just go ahead and hit close and let this save. It's going to upload my draft file. And I'm done with my edits. So let's close and return all the way back to the top level. This looks great. I'm going to go ahead and hit close, let this all save. My common property dialog box comes up. It's telling me that all of these objects are going to not only get uploaded, but they're also going to get checked back into the system. And again, I can change whichever of these map properties that I want to go ahead and fill out or alter. And Mr. Stainbrook is now finished for the day. He's going to close his solid edge session. Now, I'm at my solid edge session working, and I happen to notice Mr. Stainbrook go ahead and leave, and I know that he had some objects checked out. So I'd like to know what is the status of the components that I'm currently working with. Now, I can come in at any time and I can run status, update status info, and I can run this on specific objects, or I can run this on the entire assembly that I have open. Once I run this new status, you see that this is displayed differently because it's no longer checked out to Mr. Stainbrook, and it's telling me that there is a new version available. There's a newer solid edge file inside of that item revision, and if I look a little closer, I can see that the subassembly that he was in also has a newer version available. And let's expand that and see what we've got, and I can see that here I've got an object that is underlined, and what the underline is telling me is that I don't have a newer version in revision A, but I do have a newer revision that's up inside of Team Center. So let's go ahead and see what has Mr. Stainbrook done and how does that affect us. I'm going to simply right click and go in and edit to IPA in, and upon doing so I'm going to go up to Team Center and I'm going to re-resolve all of the components and bring them down. And let's expand into here. So this now has the latest version, still at Rev A. This has the latest version, still at Rev A. But I do not have the latest revision. To resolve this, I'm going to in-place activate into the subassembly. So I can just right-click and hit Edit. And this is telling me that the revision rule for this cannot be processed because a different version is already there. So my revision rule is saying that we need to be in revision B because I'm looking for the latest revisions. However, I have A currently open explicitly. So I can OK to that message, and what I shall do is right-click this component, and I'm going to go to the revisions command. The revisions command not only allows me to create a new revision, but it also shows me the entire revision history. I'm currently looking at A. I'm going to go to B and right click and hit replace. And when I say OK, the Pathfinder is notifying me that I'm currently in revision B. And it's no longer underlined because I do have the latest revision. So let's close and return. And we'll go one more time to get all the way to the top level. And if I look closely here, you note that I in fact do have the latest revision because of the geometric changes. I no longer have this square cutout, and the slot and this arm is longer. So what we've done so far is we have created a structure outside of CAD. This could have been done by a manager or some other non-CAD user within the organization. I opened up that structure to create geometry, and at the same time one of those components were being modified by one of my coworkers. I was able to see that information, that he did have something that he had checked out and he was working on, and within the session I was able to refresh and bring my information current. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close and hit yes. And I can see all the components that I have checked out and made changes on. They're going to be all checked in, saved, and updated into Team Center. So let's do one more step. I'm going to go back to open existing document, and I'm going to say I want to see, in this case, assemblies. And I'm going to come back to the assembly that I was just working on. And it's now no longer a non-modeled component, it's an actual component. And I want to bring your attention to something that we are very unique in being able to do in the industry. And that is, we have what's called revision rules. And because of the architecture of Team Center, that we contain within an item multiple revisions, I have the ability to set different rules to determine which components I should be opening. In this case, I've got latest working, and latest working is going to open first, precisely what I saved. Second, what is the latest revision? Third, what is the latest revision that has status? In this case, what I want to do is open this slightly different. I want to open up only something that has status, and if the item does not have a revision that's been released, then I want to grab the latest revision that does not have status or has not been released. So if I run this and hit open, you'll notice that when this assembly opens, the only component that had status, which was the arm that Mr. Sandberg was revising and made changes to, this comes up to the version. Let's do scroll to part so it can be there a little quicker. And you notice that this opens up at revision A. Its priority is to pick up the latest revision that's been released, which is revision A. And I'm not going to save this, I didn't do anything. This is in opposition to if I open up the same assembly, and I'm going to tell this at this time I'm working in design. So what I really care about is I care about the latest working of anything, the latest thing that's been worked on in the design group. And if there's not anything in working, then grab status. And now you notice that I've got the latest working of this component instead of the version that was released. So let's scroll to part. And you can see I'm on revision B, which has a status of 0, which means that it's still in working. Thank you, and that concludes our brief presentation of Embedded Client.